someone who survived war, I know what it means to live in fear. I know what it means when bombs are dropped and lives are shattered. That experience shapes me. It is why I came to Congress, committed to building a world where peace is part of our foreign policy. Right now, we are watching our country headed in the wrong direction. Donald Trump is threatening to use the Insurrection Act to bring military force into our streets. His administration is using outdated laws to silence and deport foreign students and immigrants. At the same time, he has the nerve to ask for a Pentagon budget that is nearly $1 trillion. You cannot say you care about working people while you pour $1 trillion into weapons and war. You cannot talk about freedom while you're criminalizing protests. You cannot claim to support democracy while floating names like Stephen Miller for National Security Advisor, who, by the way, is the architect of some of the coolest, most racist policies this country has ever seen. Thankfully, the Feminist Playbook rejects these ideas because history has shown us that we cannot keep accepting that safety comes from weapons and more policing and more fear. It comes from listening to communities most impacted by war, surveillance, and state violence and following their lead. U.S. aid was one of the most effective tools we had to reduce the likelihood of conflict. For over 60 years, it provided that when we invest in food security, girls' education, and public health, we are preventing the kind of instability that fuels violence and war. The feminist vision for peace that for so many of us are lifting up today is achievable. It means reckoning with the harm the U.S. militarism has caused overseas in our streets. We have a choice, and I believe we can choose to build on peace, not war. Thank you again all for being here, and I would like to now introduce a fierce leader and one of our newest colleagues, Congresswoman Deia Ramirez of Illinois.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. As you just heard, my name is Deia Catalina Ramirez, and I proudly represent Chicago's northwest side and northwestern suburbs in Illinois 3. But more importantly, what I want you to know is more than my title, more than where I was born or where I represent, but that I am the most proudest daughter of Maria Elvira Ramirez, a Guatemalan immigrant who taught me to always lead with compassion and to recognize the shared humanity between me and my neighbors in Humboldt Park, my tias and cousins in Guatemala, and the women in war-torn countries like Palestine. Her wisdom led me to understand that my peace, that my safety, and my well-being are interconnected to the peace, to the safety, and the well-being of others and what they're experiencing across the world. So I am proud to stand with my colleagues and friends, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and the women leading with compassion to forge a different path for our country's foreign and domestic policy. A path that is rooted in peace, a path that is strengthened through democracy and justice, and that is built on diplomacy and human rights. Many devastating moments have been courtesy of peace through strength. Famine, illness, loved ones under rubble, distrust between neighbors, environmental destruction. Those are the legacy of a deeply flawed pursuit because, friends, you and I both know you cannot bear peace from the seeds of violence. You cannot reap community from a field of domination. You cannot experience safety from bombings and from oppression. Yet today, the Trump administration proposes one of the largest military budgets in our country's history. And we know where the road of militarization, of violence, and of domination leads us. We have seen these horrors reclaimed, and we've had to reclaim ourselves before from these horrors. And so the reclaiming today requires that we choose a relationship over conquest, cooperation over competition, and diplomacy over domination. That we choose to rebuild thriving communities at home and abroad with a commitment to clean environments, a commitment to affordable housing, a commitment to quality public education, a commitment to free comprehensive health care, a commitment to immigration reform, a commitment that puts policies of working people first over the greed of billionaires and those who profiteer from war itself. That is the path that we are offering, one that recognizes our interconnectedness. From Humboldt Park to Guatemala, to Palestine, to Haiti, to Korea, to Ukraine, and the Congo. A more justful, peaceful, and loving world that honors our shared humanity is possible. Don't let them tell you it's not. That is the world that we are working towards today. And so on this morning that's kind of gloomy, but getting a little sunnier, let us be the light in the midst of darkness. Seamos las luces en la oscuridad. Seamos las fuentes de esperanza, the fountain of hope. Let us be los lazos de hermandad, the ties of sisterhood in this moment. Thank you. And let's continue to be that, especially, precisely in this moment. With that, it is my honor to introduce Christine An, the founder of Women Cross DMZ.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswomen Omar and Ramirez, for your powerful remarks and for hosting this briefing to launch the Feminist Peace Playbook, a guide for defending democracy and advancing a new U.S. foreign policy. As President Trump upends U.S. foreign policy and bucks the bipartisan consensus by engaging historic adversaries, we have an opening to advance a positive vision for the U.S. role in the world. Poll after poll show that Americans are tired of endless war, be it in Ukraine, Gaza, or Korea. Most Americans support cutting Pentagon spending and reinvesting our taxpayer dollars in jobs, healthcare, and programs that improve Americans' lives. Yet this administration and Congress are poised to slash those very programs, giving an unprecedented $1 trillion to the Pentagon and massive tax breaks to billionaires. Our national budget is a moral document. We can choose to feed hungry American students school lunches or give more taxpayer dollars to Israel to bomb and kill Palestinian children. We say enough, and we demand our elected officials change course on policies that harm our collective security. We are here representing families and communities that have experienced U.S. wars, which have for decades killed and displaced millions of people and devastated our ancestral lands. Now, those opposing this violence are being threatened and disappeared, like the Korean-American student Yunso Chung, just for taking a principled stand for peace and exercising her constitutional rights. I, too, have faced consequences for speaking out about the U.S. war in Korea. But in witnessing firsthand its enormous costs, I cannot remain silent. The U.S. must end its oldest war in Korea by replacing the armistice with a peace agreement, which is key to averting nuclear war, reuniting families, and investing in a future safe for the U.S., for Korea, and the world. In fact, a new Harris poll shows that the majority of Americans support U.S. peaceful engagement with North Korea and China to reduce tensions. U.S. foreign policy should reflect this. Our nation is at a crossroads, and how we orient our role in the world will have lasting consequences for all of humanity. Will the U.S. be a force for tyranny, death, and destruction, or one for democracy, cooperation, and peace? We choose a people-centered vision of U.S. foreign policy, grounded in justice, grounded in peace, and grounded in ecological sustainability. This Feminist Peace Playbook provides a roadmap for how to shift U.S. foreign policy away from violence and domination towards a safer, more secure, and abundant future for all. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Yeat Suskin, the Executive Director of Madre.
Good morning, everyone. As Christine said, my name is Yeat Suskin. I'm the Executive Director of Madre. For decades, we have been partnering with women around the world to advocate for rights and to resource work for peace and community well-being. These women have been on the front lines of global struggles for democracy and for basic rights to housing, healthcare, education, decent jobs. And in this bleak moment, when we face new threats and dangers from our own government, we can draw from the experiences of feminist activists who've been there before. Like women in Iraq, whose government has harassed and threatened them for daring to speak out for women's rights. Nevertheless, they have mobilized entire national coalitions to fight for just policies. Or like Black and Indigenous organizers in Colombia, who protected each other through years of violence and went on to win demands for peace and for fair treatment in national policy. Or like activists in South Korea, who stood down an authoritarian coup attempt using a combination of legal strategies and political mobilization. Grassroots leaders like this have so much to teach us right now about how we prioritize the humanity of all people in the face of really inhumane policies. I've learned 3 very powerful lessons from the women we work with around the world. First, we've got to mobilize to protect the people who have been made the most vulnerable, whether that is trans kids and immigrant families in our own communities or families facing US-made bombs in Gaza and Yemen. Second, we've got to resist in ways that build the kind of society we want to live in. And we do that by making care and nonviolence the cornerstones of our organizing. Trump's fear-mongering tries to mislead us into believing that safety somehow lies in hiding behind weapons and walls. We reject that. We are here to pursue instead policies rooted in justice, like universal health care for people in the US so that nobody suffers because they don't have enough money, or trade agreements that protect workers and the environment all around the world. We know in this interconnected world that the way to build safety is to make sure that everybody is safe. And third, we've got to hold on to our vision of the kind of future we want. And in order to build that future, we've got to be able to first imagine it. And that is why the people in power are hell-bent on erasing our histories and on banning words and books and ideas. It's why they are bombarding us with unjust and often illegal executive orders. They want to destroy our capacity to dream and to build together. But they will fail because we're organized. We have a playbook. And we know that with care and repair, another world is possible. A world where all people and the planet can thrive. I want to now introduce Ramon Maha from Grassroots Global Justice Alliance.
For decades, the United States has supplied money, weapons, and training to overthrow democracies and install brutal, authoritarian, and fascist regimes across the world. Now the Trump administration is using these cruel strategies to unleash violence within the United States, aiming to silence leaders and movements who fight for our collective hopes and dreams. They have kidnapped our community members from the streets, their homes, and workplaces. Union farm worker Alfredo Lelo Juarez Serafino, student leaders Mahmoud Khalil and Ramsia Azaturk, Union brother Hilmal Abrego Garcia, all stolen from their families and communities. If they don't have due process, none of us do. For many in my family who work the strawberry fields of California, the potato farms in Idaho, their labor is considered essential to the fabric of this society, yet they are exploited at every turn and persecuted by this government. They fear of being deported and disappeared weighs on all of us every moment of every day. At the same time, Trump and his billionaire buddies are on a reckless spree to dismantle our social safety nets, threatening Medicare, public education, and Social Security agencies meant to take care of us all. They mean to weaponize fear to crush our rights, our dignity, and our humanity, all to benefit the few over the many. But we will not be paralyzed with fear. Today we declare enough. Ya basta. Our communities hold the sacred duty of love, protect, and care for one another, as Asada Shakur taught us. Together, we will build an unstoppable momentum against tyranny at home and abroad. Today, we call on solutions, or we call on 4 solutions that will make the Feminist Peace Playbook a reality on the ground. We demand a people's care agenda of policies that defend our communities from attacks and build real care and resilience. We demand that our institutions serve us, the people, not harm us. We must transform our cities into havens of safety and love, welcoming vulnerable communities, investing in local infrastructure, and strengthening the social safety nets that sustain us all. We demand an investment in community care and resilience and divestment from systems of violence and harm, divest from war, violence, and militarism, and use those resources to build resilient, caring communities, unionized jobs that create safe neighborhoods and bright futures for all. Safety isn't a commodity that you can drop from drones and fighter jets. Fear is not the marker of a free and just society. As Ella Baker said, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. It is in unity, love, and solidarity that true strength and safety is born. We all must refuse to comply with fascist repression. We must instead build a new world through care, courage, and community. A world in which everyone lives in dignity, harmony, and balance with the earth. Our movements are powerful, and we will win. Now, I'd like to introduce Marie Berry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Berry, and I'm a feminist sociologist and a professor at the University of Denver. For nearly 20 years, I've studied how women experience war and its aftermath. I've done research on 5 continents, in places like Rwanda, Bosnia, Nepal, Colombia, Sri Lanka, and more, interviewing hundreds of women whose lives have been shaped by violence. Along the way, I've been repeatedly struck by 2 simultaneous truths. The first is that war is devastating, leaving those who survive it with the trauma and grief that can last for generations. But the second is that even in the most bleak and impossible conditions of war, people, and especially women and mothers, forge great beauty, joy, and community. They offer us blueprints for a world built not on domination, but on care and connection. That lesson isn't abstract for me, it's also personal. I grew up here in the United States, raised on stories of my father's time in Vietnam. Only later did I fully understand that he had been drafted at 18, a high school dropout sent to fight a war he didn't believe in. And as a child, his father had undergone the same disorientation as he was drafted to fight in Korea, where as a pilot, he contributed to a bombing campaign that killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Koreans. Both men returned home with trauma that still reverberates in my family to this day. And this is the legacy of American militarism, not just abroad, but in our homes, our neighborhoods, our bodies, and our minds. The safety we are told war brings instead makes so many of us less safe. Today, we face an administration and a broader political system that has doubled down on systems of criminalization, surveillance, and violence in the name of security. But feminists have always known that this is a lie. The roots of Trumpism are not exceptional. They are systemic and often bipartisan. And the same apparatus that wages war abroad enables repression and fear at home. Our task then is to rewire the ecosystem that props up authoritarianism and enables war and genocide to unfold with American military support around the world. Our task is to remind each other that true safety can never be delivered from the barrel of a gun, that it is built slowly and collectively through investments in care and justice, our children, and our collective well-being. Our task is to remember what generations of women who have lived through war have taught us, that our strength is rooted in our ability to build, tend, and maintain peace. The Feminist Peace Playbook is a roadmap for that task. It offers strategy, vision, and direction for all of us to care, protect, and organize for a more free world. And now I'd like to invite Iman Abbid Thompson to speak. Thank you so much.
Hello all. My name is Iman Abbid and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Organizing at the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, an organization dedicated to centering the Palestinian people and working to end U.S. military funding to Israel. I am also a Palestinian mother who gave birth to my first child, a beautiful Palestinian boy, in the midst of a genocide of my own people. We are in a dire moment. A moment of unrestrained and escalating violence and repression. The United States' continued support for the ongoing genocide in Gaza is now being used and weaponized at home by a fascist regime to crush dissent and dismantle civil society. We must not be intimidated by their attempts to silence us. The time to speak up and stand strong for Gaza, for all of Palestine, is more important now than ever. Palestinians in Gaza are being deliberately starved and have been denied humanitarian aid for over 60 days. Thousands of already malnourished children are on the brink of death, and every facet of life in Gaza has been attacked. Gaza's water infrastructure has been deliberately destroyed, and warehouses of food have been bombed. Gaza's farmland has been bulldozed and poisoned. Palestinians are being killed while waiting in lines for food and water, deliberately targeted by the Israeli government for simply trying to feed their families. Families sheltering in UNRWA schools, designated supposed safe zones, have been bombed in their sleep. All of Gaza's hospitals have been deliberately attacked, and the few medical centers still operating have already run out of supplies. Despite all of these evident war crimes, the U.S. continues to send weapons to support the genocide. We, the people of this country, have not done enough to bring this to an end. We have ignored the Palestinian children who have pleaded for their lives and have only received bombs and bullets. We have ignored Palestinian women who care for their families in their tents and lack access to basic menstrual products and reproductive care. And we have ignored Palestinian men who have been taken and tortured in Israeli prisons for months, if not years on end. The United States is fully complicit in this genocide of the Palestinian people. From one administration to the next, the continued flow of weapons and political support to block any accountability has enabled and emboldened Israel's assault on the entire region. We now know that more Americans than ever before disapprove of their tax dollars being funding weapons to Israel. Why are we paying for death and destruction abroad when we should be investing in the American people and funding healthcare, housing, education, and infrastructure at home? We continue to demand that every elected official call for an end to this genocide. We demand that the United States immediately divest from death and invest in life. We, the Palestinian people, are deserving of life. I thank Congresswomen Omar and Ramirez for standing up for what's right. And we urgently need Congress to stand on the right side of history. Thank you. And up next, I'll be welcoming Lauren Manis, who is the political director of If Not Now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Iman. My name is Lauren Manis. I am political director of If Not Now. If Not Now is a movement of American Jews organizing our community to end U.S. support for Israel's apartheid system and demand equality, justice, and a thriving future for all. As a kid, my mom would nearly weekly recount to me and my sister the plot of her recurring Holocaust nightmares. Because of these traumatizing stories, I grew up being scared of the military, being scared of police, and being scared of war. And at the same time, I was taught that the cops outside my synagogue were there to keep me safe, that a strong Israel was there to ensure my people's safety. That contradiction made no sense to me. I felt safe learning and playing with my racially and ethnically diverse classmates at our well-funded public school, not through passing the armed cop as I entered temple, nor praying for a country I had no personal connection to. And yet, we're still being fed the same contradiction. How does it make any sense that the only way Jews here in the US, in Israel, or anywhere can be safe through the brutal massacre, starvation, and occupation of Palestinians? Or through revoking free speech and civil liberties here in the US, detaining and threatening to deport those who speak out against these horrors? It's offensive. Right now, Congress is debating passing a budget that would cut billions of dollars in life-saving social programs like SNAP and Medicaid, while proposing almost spending $1 trillion on bolstering the military, including further increasing funding to Israeli military's genocide of the Palestinian people. And Trump's Department of Education is canceling funding for critical research at universities under the false guise of fighting anti-Semitism, but really to further their billionaire militaristic agenda. But what happens when Trump and his cronies tell people that they can't receive a new trial cancer treatment because university funding has been cut, supposedly because of anti-Semitism? Jews, my community, will yet again be scapegoated and made to shoulder that blame. So our community must oppose this dangerous right-wing playbook and instead embrace shared safety, the fundamental premise that our safety and liberation as Jews will never come at the expense of anyone else's rights and freedoms. That all of our safety is intertwined, and therefore we must fight against US-backed authoritarianism and war everywhere, not just for those firstly and most severely impacted, but also like our lives and futures depend on it. Today and every day, we demand not one more US-made bomb dropped in our name, not another child killed, family broken apart, and community destroyed. We are building an unstoppable movement that knows in its bones that we will only be safe when Palestinians and all people enduring the consequences of the US military agenda are safe and free. May it be so. And I'm honored to introduce founder and executive director of Afghans for a Better Tomorrow, Arash Azizada.
My name is Arash Azizada, and I'm the founding co-director of Afghans for a Better Tomorrow. In 2018, a delegation of Afghan women flew to Washington, D.C., ringing their alarm bells. They told me America was going to abandon them and bring the repressive Taliban back to power. At the time, the first Trump administration was leading negotiations to withdraw from Afghanistan and was excluding Afghans, especially Afghan women, from the negotiating table. We knew that the war had to end, but we also knew that this exclusion was unacceptable and could not lead to lasting peace. So we sprung into action, leading grassroots community efforts to ensure that women were allowed to speak on their own behalf in Doha at the U.S.-led talks. We worked hard, but even that small ask was denied. In the end, America led a bloody, aimless, forever war that lasted 20 years, killed close to 200,000 people, and betrayed Afghan women and so many others on their way out, all in the name of liberating Afghan women. Weapons manufacturers won, Afghan women lost. Today, Afghanistan is the only country on the planet where girls and women are banned from getting an education. Women are banned from civic life and the economy. And this is the result of America's faraway wars. Since 2021, we've had a constant stream of desperate emails in our inboxes from Afghan women, as well as ethnic and religious minorities, queer Afghans. They want to get to safety. All they're asking for and praying for is a visa. The answer is often that there is no help. And so many Afghans have desperately flown around the world aiming to make their way somehow to seek asylum at the border, a right afforded to them by the U.S. and international law. Last year, we visited Tijuana, Mexico, and we came across hundreds of Afghans, our country people, eager to just find a sense of safety here in the U.S. Yet instead of America offering them what they are owed, they are being hunted down by ICE or deported to Panama, Costa Rica, or even back to Afghanistan. Hunted down by the Taliban at home and hunted down by the U.S. government in their supposed new home. I stand in front of you as an Afghan man whose community is able to survive and thrive because of the maternal care of the women in our community. It's the mothers, cousins, aunts, and grandmas who hold our families together. It's the young Afghan girls who bravely stand up to the Taliban. The road to liberation is long, but I know it will be led by the women and girls in my community, who today live in all 50 states, who lead, who inspire me. It is them that will set all of us free. The people behind me and people in Washington, D.C., they should listen and repay the debt owed to Afghan women in my community, or they will be doomed to repeat the failures of the past, and women will undoubtedly suffer the most. Trust me, Afghans know what that feels like. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Britney Ramos Deberos.
My name is Britney Ramos Deberos. I'm a former Army captain, a combat veteran, and a proud member of About Face Veterans Against the War, an organization of thousands of post 9/11 military members and veterans who have committed ourselves to working against the unjust military aggression that we were manipulated and contributing to. When I deployed to Afghanistan in 2012, I believed I was going to protect and liberate Afghans. Instead, I witnessed the rampant racism, waste, and profiteering that made it clear that we were simply adding to the violence that they were struggling to survive. I will never forget the week my route clearance platoon was forced to leave bombs in the roads for over a week, putting hundreds of Afghan and U.S. military lives at risk because a corporate contract dictated that we had to wait for corporate mechanics to arrive instead of fixing our own vehicles. How many members of Congress got richer on that contract alone? I am haunted by the images of farm workers scrambling to take cover amidst reckless gunfire, and the entire Afghan family that we killed by accident, amounting to nothing more than a routine battle damage assessment in some forgotten file. Far from making anyone more free or more safe, our actions cause direct, immeasurable harm to so many. I know in my bones that I was part of a force that both directly terrorized the Afghan people and fueled the fires of violent extremism that make everyone, including the American people, less safe. In 2018, the Army put me under investigation and threatened to court-martial me for highlighting public military reports that documented the thousands of bombs that we were dropping on Afghanistan, slaughtering thousands of people that even we classified as civilians. The senselessness and corruption at the heart of it was beyond words. Being targeted for simply telling the truth proved to me that our military leaders and elected officials don't actually believe in the integrity of the orders to kill and die that they give people like me. As a combat veteran, I have seen that our attempts to create safety through violence and force projection are not only ineffective and massively destructive, they are also counterproductive. Every single speaker that has stepped up to this podium today has shared harrowing examples that prove that our approach to foreign policy has not made them or anyone listening more safe. People who sign up to serve this country deserve to know that their lives and souls are being risked for something just. Every single day that our Congress members abdicate their oversight responsibilities and fail to provide meaningful leadership towards a less violent world, they betray our most basic trust and sacrifice. Our only hope for a better future is investment in feminist approaches like reconciliation, cooperation, and regenerative economies, like the approaches outlined so clearly in the Feminist Peace Playbook. We know what we need, and now we must speak with one voice to demand it. I'll hand it over to Diana to accept questions.
Thank you all for sharing those urgent and beautiful reflections. As she just mentioned, we have time for any questions that you all might have, so we'll pause for that. But if not, we are all here available. It was so clear. It was so clear and compelling. So thank you all once again for being here. Again, we're all here for any future engagement, and thank you to all of our speakers for sharing those reflections. Thank you.
I think we can do it. We just gotta squish. It's like a fun. It's the capital in the background. Okay. Yeah, I know. We need a bigger hand. Okay, just one of them is gonna work. Oh yeah, it's gonna work. Oh yeah.
Good job. That was so powerful. Oh my God, I was totally bawling. That was so powerful. Oh, you got me going. You got me going.